Drummond set to join the Lakers. And let's go back nearly 10 years ago when Drummond was a high school star. 2 weeks before he committed to UConn, he wrote on Twitter, "One of my goals in life is to meet and play with or against LeBron James."
Okay.
Speak it into existence, Dre.
You know, for me, I'm just here to help in any capacity it may be in. I'm not here to do anything besides win. So I think playing with those guys can really benefit my game, be able to allow them to play their game and have a third person to, cause havoc.
Can't just not. But AD doesn't have to be 100%. Now they're going to get out of the West. And part of that's going to be because what happens over the next month. This Lakers squad did not have enough to win very many games, as we could see, right? Schroeder is their best player by far, and they just don't have enough firepower to win. And LeBron and AD are going to be out for a while longer. What Andre Drummond can do in the meantime, guys, he's probably going to average, just walking onto the club, 20 and 15. Right? Something like that, because where's the scoring going to be from?
At least 15.
Yeah, 15. He grabs a lot. So, I don't want to, I know advanced analytics can tell you, but his impact on the game is limited because of X, Y, and Z. But he can play basketball. He's good at basketball, and he's big. So you have not a 7-footer, but somewhere in that area of a guy who can score and rebound and help keep your head above water while you're waiting for the superstars to get back. That'll improve their record. And then, when they do get back, Drummond either gives you great minutes as a backup 5, or you play AD at the 4 with Drummond at the 5, and you have twin towers. The Lakers will get out of the West, provided AD's at least 80% of what he normally is.
I totally agree in that regard. Let's understand something. Andre Drummond is a career 13.8 rebound per game player. 13.8 for his career. For his career. I'm looking at his numbers, Max. This dude has been in the league 10 years. The only time he has not averaged double digits in rebounds is his rookie year. The only time.
He messed around, get you 17 boards a game.
This dude is a rebounding machine. And so when you look at it from that perspective, and a career 53.8% shooter from the field, shot about 49% for in his 2 years with the Cavs. But, he plays around the basket. He ain't trying to take jump shots or anything like that. Rebounds, putbacks, that's what his specialty is. So when I look at it from that perspective, and your primary offensive players is LeBron James, along with Anthony Davis, and you're kicking it out to shooters, and you have a guy like this dude who's capable of giving you cleanup duty. And oh, by the way, of the 13.8 rebounds he's averaged in his career, Max, offensive rebounds, 4.7. 4.7. Right. So you're talking about a guy the extra possessions cleans up. That's a huge, huge deal, particularly when you consider the number 1 team in the West right now is the Utah Jazz with Rudy Gobert. When you've got that as a consideration, when you've got the Joker as a consideration in Denver, when you've got Nurkic coming back and what have you, if you've got an additional big body, somebody who's physical and prioritizes rebounds, and getting you extra possessions, and more importantly, limiting other teams from getting possessions because he's snatching those boards, that puts more pressure on opposing offenses to be more efficient against the Los Angeles Lakers, coached by Frank Vogel and his elite staff, whether it's Hollins and Phil Handy and the rest of the crew and Lionel Hollins and those boys. The bottom line is you look at the Los Angeles Lakers, and I definitely think the acquisition of Drummond secures them coming out of the West for this season, assuming that Anthony Davis is going to be about 80% or better.
Especially after Denver makes a move, and there are other teams that make moves. But there's another way to look at it that's kind of like from a broader perspective. The Lakers didn't have enough starting caliber players.
Yep.
They have 2 superstars, Schroeder, and no one else is really a starter. KCP is not quite a starting caliber player. Mm-hmm. He doesn't do any one thing well enough to start, right? Does a lot of things well enough to come off your bench. Kuzma's not a starting quality. He's a rotation piece for sure.
Right.
I'm not dissing him. He can play,
but
he's not a starter in the league. Drummond's a starter in the NBA. Yeah. And Schroeder's a starter. Now, all of a sudden, you look at the Lakers and you go, it's not just that they have 2 super-duper stars.
Right.
They have other guys who are starting caliber in their rotation.
Here's
Montrezl Harrell.
Here's what makes it interesting. They're sending a message. You're not beating us in the interior. You're not doing anything against us. If you're going to beat us, it's going to have to be from the perimeter. Now, we look at the Clippers. For the most part, they're perimeter they're a perimeter team. We look at Phoenix. We look at Utah because of their ability to shoot threes, even though you got Royce O'Neal and Rudy Gobert anchoring their defense on the perimeter and in the interior. Offensively speaking, even though Rudy can give you something, they're primarily a shooting team. You're going to have to be able to hit perimeter shots in order to beat the Lakers. I don't believe that's going to be enough to beat LeBron James and Anthony Davis unless you are Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Kyrie Irving. So that is the only shot, as far as I'm concerned, that anybody's going to have to take out the Lakers.
Yeah, like what someone brought this up. I'm trying to remember who it was on the radio, my radio show, Max Kellerman Show, 2 p.m.
Yes,
Eastern.
2 p.m. Eastern time.
Radio. Yes,
2 to 4, right? 2 to 4 Eastern time, right?
That's right.
Okay,
yes. LeBron and AD cause such matchup problems for everyone because you take a guy, you mentioned Royce O'Neal, excellent defender, right?
Excellent.
The problem with LeBron and Rudy Gobert, the problem with LeBron and AD is that's not a matchup for LeBron and AD. These dudes are 6'8" and 6'11", and you need O'Neal to be 6'9" or 6'10", and you need two of them against the Lakers. The Drummond move is a strong move post-deadline for a team like the Lakers to make. I think it solidifies them in the West.
Get it. Drummond has 44-20.
Shooting team in the league. They've got size on the interior. They've got defensive wizardry on the perimeter. I mean, they can shoot. They pass the ball well. They defend. They rebound. They block shots. They're the number 1 seed in basketball. They thus far have definitely looked better than anybody else in the Western Conference. So to me, based on what Doc Rivers said, I can understand where he's coming from because LeBron is LeBron, AD is AD, and the playoffs have yet to start. But the Clippers obviously haven't proven to be that team as of yet. So if I'm going to sit up there and say the Lakers and the Clippers still a team to beat in the West, if I'm Utah, I would say, all right, the Lakers are the reigning defending world champions, but what the hell are you throwing the Clippers into that sentence for, Doc Rivers? That's what I would feel like if I were the Utah Jazz.
I think that's a perfectly fine, reasonable position to take. Utah's been excellent this year. The team that should feel most disrespected is the Denver Nuggets.
Okay.
Denver Nuggets beat Utah in the first round in a classic series. No Bogdanovich, but you know who Denver didn't have? Aaron Gordon, who they now have. Mm-hmm. You know who wasn't really that dude yet? Porter Jr., who now is shooting like 44% from three.
He's a special offensive talent.
He certainly is. And look, Paul Millsap's coming off the bench now. They just got Aaron Gordon, who's a skywalker, and by the way, having a good shooting year. Here's the thing about Denver. Not only did they beat Utah round 1, and they just added Aaron Gordon, they knocked out the Clippers round 2. They knocked out the Clippers. So who should feel offended by that? I don't know. The team that beat the Clippers last year? And by the way, the Clippers do pick up playoff Rondo, and that's a real thing. Rondo goes in the regular season from not average starting point guard quality. I mean, they're got more than 15 guys better in regular season when the games don't matter that much. Mm-hmm. When the games matter in the playoffs, Rondo's an all-star. Playoff Rondo is real. Know what else is real? Playoff Jamal Murray. Because Jamal Murray doesn't go from below average in the regular season to all-star in the playoffs. Jamal Murray went last year from almost kind of an all-star caliber player in the regular season to MVP in the play. He played an MVP caliber in the playoffs. Now, what's the difference between Utah and Denver? Utah's got one of those guys in Donovan Mitchell. Denver's got 2 of those guys. And in the playoffs, that's what matters. Who do you have? If you have other pieces too, which Denver does, who do you have that can be an MVP caliber player? Jokic, who could win the MVP this year. Jokic is having one of the best offensive seasons ever. He's amazing. But he might not even be the best player on the team come playoff time, the way Jamal Murray played in the first round last year, and the second round for that matter. Jamal Murray and Jokic give them a 2-headed monster on top of MVP caliber players that very few teams can match, and that includes Utah. The Aaron Gordon trade puts them over the top. I think it's Denver.
By the way, just a slight correction. The Utah Jazz are number 1 in three-pointers made. The Clippers are number 1 in three-point percentage shooting. All right, so I just want to make sure I corrected that point. That's number 1. Number 2, I get where you're coming from, but we're talking about this year. We're not rewinding the clock to last year and what transpired in the playoffs. We're talking about based what we've seen this season. The Doc Rivers is saying that what he said essentially based on what we've seen. When AD and LeBron is in the lineup, we see how formidable the Los Angeles Lakers were this season. When the Clippers, when Kawhi Leonard and Paul George are playing, we've seen how formidable they've been. But the Utah Jazz are 34-11. They're the number one seed in the NBA. They have been flat out balling. And we just got to look at their coaching staff and the exceptional job that they're doing and the way that they play together and how they're beating you for the perimeter. If this was a team with the same exact record, Max, and they sat up there and they had this record and they were this formidable because Rudy Gobert was leading the way and Donovan Mitchell was still averaging 24, I wouldn't have that mentality. It's that right now you're looking at them. Again, number one in three-pointers made. All right, number two in three-point percentage shooting. You got Jordan Clarkson. He's
great six-man nowadays.
He could potentially win Six-Man of the Year award. Yeah. Quinn Snyder could win Coach of the Year honors. Legitimately. You see the things that Rudy Gobert could be your defensive player of the year.
In the playoffs,
All I'm saying it, but what I'm saying is, in the playoffs, what wins for you, particularly in this day and age? The ability to defend, and to hit threes.
Fine, but in the playoffs, the Nuggets have two superstars, and the Jazz have one.
Well, what I'm saying is,
Let me say something.
Denver lost.
Let me say something. To the Lakers, eventually. Okay. Aaron Gordon, when he's supposed to be the best player on your team, because his shooting really, this year it's better, but it didn't come around to the extent you might want to like it to come around. No. But it kind of reminds me of Iguodala, not in terms of the style of play, but when Iguodala is supposed to be the best player on the Sixers, come on, that's a little bit of a stretch. You're not going to win a championship that way. When he's the fourth best player on your team, Aaron Gordon now doesn't have to worry about carrying a team. He can just fit in. That dude with that athletic ability and attitude,
fit in.
A good kid can fit into that team.
He's not a minus, but how much of a plus? We'll find out.
Oh, Millsap's on the bench now.
All right, according to BPI, they have...
Roger 40.
All right, according to BPI, they have the Jazz winning it all. Let's keep it moving here, guys. More NBA to get into. James Harden scoring 44, and the Nets held off the Pistons for the win on Friday night. After the game, Harden staking his claim for MVP. Take a listen.
Well, I feel like I belong in it. I feel like I am the MVP. It's that simple. I don't want to talk. I don't want to be, speaking division on myself, but I'm going to just leave it at that.
Okay, I'm not going to start with my idol right now. I'm going to start with the voice of LA. Max, do KD and Kyrie need Harden to win the title?
Yep, to win the title, yes. No, I'm talking get out of the East. To win the title, yes. And I understand how James Harden feels. He's played the best basketball in the world this year. He just missed those games early with the Nets, but he has been